Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to our first Irish Bayer webinar in conjunction with the GCSEI and BIGA, our education partners. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Greg Collins. I'm the National Account Manager for Bayer in Ireland. I hope you all and your families are staying safe during these uncertain times with COVID-19, and that golf will come back even stronger when all this is over. We are very excited here in Ireland and at Bayer to be launching a brand new fungicide into the Irish market today called Signature Extra Stress Guard. With all the pressures of losing fungicides recently, launching Signature Extra Stress Guard reaffirms Bayer's commitment to finding sustainable solutions for turfgrass managers and greenkeepers. So before we get started, and I hand you over to Colin Mumford, during the session there is a question and answer facility available. If you just go to the Q&A tab on the screen, you can write your question, and at the end of the presentation, we'll answer as many questions as possible. There are also some basis, IASes, and CPD GCSEI points available. Again, at the end of the presentation, the final page will give you all the details to send your basis numbers to us, so we can then issue you with the credits associated with the same. So without further ado, I'm going to put you over to Colin Mumford. A lot of you guys will know Colin Mumford. He's our technical manager. You would have seen him at various educational events that BIGA and the GCSEI have been holding over the last number of years. So without further ado, over to you, Colin.
Thank you, Greg. Hello, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to this presentation today. I want to give you some more information about Signature Extra Stress Guard, and the points that I want to cover. Here we go. First, I want to talk about the challenges that both you as course superintendents and Bayer as a manufacturer face. It's a mutual challenge that we have there, and then I should say, if you keep seeing me glancing across, it's because my screen's here and the camera's there, so apologies for that. But so I will talk about the challenges, and then I shall give you more details about Signature Extra Stress Guard itself, and that will lead on nicely to more explanation about the Stress Guard formulation technology, because Signature Extra Stress Guard is a turf-specific formulation, and so I want to explain more about that formulation. And then we get down to the sort of the nuts and bolts, the actual results that have been achieved with Signature Extra Stress Guard. So I'll go through the trial results, and then at the end, as Greg pointed out, if you send in your questions via the chat facility, we'll have a question and answer session at the end. So for the next 30 minutes, I'll just go through what I've highlighted here, and I'll start with the challenges. As I say, it's a mutual challenge for you as course superintendents, greenkeepers, and for ourselves as a manufacturer. And this challenge is the regulatory environment. We've seen in recent times the loss of active ingredients and fungicide groups. So in Ireland, you have fewer fungicide groups available to you. The fungicide groups are really important because they're the modes of action, and you want to rotate those modes of action as much as possible to minimize the potential for resistance to occur. So a couple of years ago, we lost, or I should say you lost, dicarboxamide, the fungicide group. So that was the fungicide group that gave you the active ingredient iprodion, and from that you had the products Chipco Green and an array of generic products. But more recently, you've had the loss of phthalonitrile, the fungicide group phthalonitrile. I think I've pronounced that correctly, because the spelling is starts with PHTH, so I think it's phthalonitrile is how it's pronounced. But that was the active ingredient chlorothalonil that came from that. So that was removed because the product that contained chlorothalonil contained propiconazole, and propiconazole has been withdrawn. Any products containing propiconazole as a result were withdrawn as well. So that's two fungicide groups that you've lost in quick succession. And new fungicide groups don't come along very often, typically once every 10 years. So that's really important to bear in mind. So it's a challenge for yourself, and it's a challenge for Bayer, the regulatory environment. So a new solution is required, but not just something that is solving the issue of the disease, but something that's more than that, something that can provide you with consistent performance, so that you're getting uniform quality across all of your playing surfaces. And with that, it's with Signature Extra Stress Guard, it's a mark of how important Bayer consider golf course management, turf management, amenity management, turf amenity management in general, because Bayer have invested, and they've actually produced Signature Extra Stress Guard, which is another new turf fungicide group. So as I say, it's very rare that they come along, once every 10 years typically, and now within 2 years, Bayer have launched a second. So the first one being the SDHIs, succinate dehydrogenase inhibitors. So flupiram was the active ingredient that came from that, which is found in Exteris Stress Guard. And now we have this brand new turf fungicide group, and the group is called phosphonates, and the active ingredient from that is called phosphate aluminium, or phosphate al for short. And as I say, it's a turf-specific formulation, but more importantly than that, phosphate al is fully systemic. And when I say fully systemic, you already have systemic active ingredients available to you, but those active ingredients are what's termed as an acropetal penetrant. That's where the product goes into the plant and then travels upwards. So it will travel towards the tip of the leaf, or it will travel up through the stem. And those active ingredients that are acropetal penetrants that you currently have are azoxystrobin, tebuconazole, difenoconazole, and flupiram. And the key difference with Signature Extra is that it's fully systemic. So it travels upwards through the xylem and downwards through the phloem. So the entire plant is being protected from shoot to root. And that's a key advancement with this product compared to existing fungicides. Not only is it fully systemic and a new fungicide group, it also has plant health benefits, which I'll come on to in greater detail in a minute. But essentially, those plant health benefits give you the consistent playing surfaces that you require, and from that you're getting satisfaction not only from yourself but also from golfers playing your golf course. So this is a really big step forward with the introduction of Signature Extra. I won't dwell on these 3 points. These 3 points that are on the screen at the moment. I've essentially just gone through those. It's a new fungicide group, mode of action, phosphonates is the group, new active ingredient, phosphate aluminium, and that it's a true systemic, goes up and down the plant. In terms of resistance management, so I've mentioned you want to rotate through those modes of action. There's no documented resistance with phosphate aluminium, and FRAC, the Fungicide Resistance Action Committee, they define phosphate al as low risk for resistance. So it can be used in any spray program, and there's no issues with cross resistance with other fungicides. And good stewardship would be that you rotate those modes of action as much as possible. But with phosphate al, because it is such a low risk for resistance, you can actually have sequential applications with this product. And also because it's a turf-specific formulation, it's a stress guard formulated product, there are enhanced benefits where there is other stresses. So typically, a few weeks ago, or the last 6 weeks, bar last week, we've had clearly sort of summer stress. This really helps mitigate that abiotic stress. I'll come on to that in more detail in a minute. Now, in terms of what's in the product on the label, I've mentioned fusitile aluminium several times already, so I shan't mention it anymore. But it contains 600 grams per kilogram of fusitile al, and that's different. Usually on the label it would say milliliters per liter, so milliliters per liter would be a liquid. This is grams per kilogram because it's a granule product, and it's what we call a wettable granule, or a WG for short. The diseases that it controls, or the diseases on the label, are microdocium patch and anthracnose. And the product, like all new fungicides, because of regulatory environment, essentially, it's a preventative, early curative product. So if we look at the stages of microdocium development here on the screen, you can see on the left-hand side, we have pre-disease. This is where the spores are present, but they're not active. That would be a true preventative application if you were to apply it at that stage. The next two stages are early curative applications. So this is when the spores are active. You may not necessarily see effects on the turf, or you're just starting to see those initial effects on the turf. That is the sort of the window of opportunity when you should be applying Signature Extra to get the maximum benefit from it. So monitoring your surfaces, as you would do on a daily basis, is really important. And as soon as you see signs, you need to get the product on. Now, the later stages, what would be curative and an eradicant application, that's where a disease is present and it's become established, and it's got a stranglehold on your turf. You could apply the product at those stages, but the effects wouldn't be a satisfactory effect. It would have an effect, but to get the benefit of the formulation and the most impact on the disease, it really needs to be applied as a preventative early curative application, and that's what we're recommending: preventative early curative application. Now, these pictures on the screen, these are actually show a trial that we conducted over 2 years at the Sports Turf Research Institute, and this was looking at preventative versus curative applications. And if you look at the picture on the left, this is an aerial photo of a section of the plots, and you can see labeled the untreated plots, the curative plots, and the preventative plots. And Signature Extra there was a preventative application. Now, if we use digital color analysis that pulls out the hue angle layer from RGB images and converts it to a false color scale, the results help to highlight differences in visual color and uniformity, and that's what we've done with the image on the right. So it's the image on the left that's been converted by changing the hue angle layer of the color spectrum, and so you can see clearly the differences between the plots. The red to orange blotches, that's established disease, and you can see that in the untreated plots. The yellow is really stressed out turf, with early signs of disease, and some disease as well. And the greener plots are the preventative plots, and you can see on this image that the Signature Extra plot has the most greenness of all the plots. It's the healthiest plot in this trial. In terms of application, it's applied at a rate of 20 kilograms per hectare, and that is applied in a water volume between 220 litres per hectare and 600 litres per hectare. So if you have a small spray tank, a 300 litre spray tank, you can quite comfortably apply to a hectare with just one tank full. I mentioned earlier that you can do multiple or sequential applications. It's 3 applications per annum with this product, and there has to be a minimum of 14 days, a 14-day interval between applications. Now, for microdocium, the application period is September to April, and for anthracnose, it's all year round. So, effectively, you've got all year round applications there. Now, with multiple consecutive applications, we are actually seeing you get accumulative benefits. You're getting increased control with each subsequent application. And I'll go through the results a bit later, which highlights this. In terms of where it can be applied, clearly golf courses, but also other sports turf areas, so football, rugby, and cricket pitches. And it's a professional use only product, and it's not authorised for use on domestic lawns, for instance. Now, we'll see with this, the formulation, we're getting these enhanced plant health effects. And here are just some examples. Antioxidant properties leading to oxidative stress protection, enhanced root growth on stressed turf compared to untreated turf, wilt protection, something that would have been valuable several weeks ago when we had all the sun and the heat. Mitigation and recovery from wear stress, fantastic results with that, but overall improved turf colour quality and density. Now, excuse me while I quickly take a sip. Sorry about that. Right, I've put this picture up because it's not the greatest picture, it's a bit dark, but I put this up because it shows Signature Extra being applied. And you can see the spray curtain beneath the boom there at the back of the sprayer. It clearly has a blue-green tint to it. And this is the pigment as part of that formulation. And you can clearly see where you've sprayed with it. So one of the advantages of Signature Extra is that you don't need to add a spray indicator to your tank when applying this product. You can clearly see where you've been. Now, the benefits of that pigment is you get an initial green up, a nice uniform colour across the surface, and that will last. That pigment will last between 1 and 2 weeks. How long it lasts depends on the rate of growth that you have on your turf and the frequency of your mowing. You're physically removing it from the turf, but there is the turf remains a nice lustrous green color because part of the formulation increases the amount of chlorophyll in the turf. So as the pigment is fading away, the natural greenness in the turf is improved because of the chlorophyll content, which is the green pigment in the turf. And with that, I'll now talk a bit more about the stress guard formulation technology. As I said, it's a turf-specific formulation, and this is the culmination of sort of 20+ years of research and development. And to break it down, the formulation is the active ingredients, inert ingredients, and turf-specific co-formulants. And really, I sort of liken this, to make it easier to understand, I liken it to making a cup of tea for the fussiest tea drinker in your family. So there's always someone that their tea has to be exactly right. And this is essentially what formulation technology is. It's taking the active ingredient and it's making it specifically for that turf environment. So, as you know, we all know that the ingredients for a cup of tea: milk, sugar, water, and a tea bag. Too much milk or not enough, too much sugar or not enough. Leave the tea bag in too long, and you get builder's tea. Not enough, and it's cat's pee basically. So it's getting not only getting the proportions correct, it's the order in which they go in. So again, some people prefer their tea, their milk poured in after the tea's gone in. Others prefer the milk in before the tea goes in. So that's sort of the simplest way I can explain the formulation technology. There is more to it than that, but as I say, that's sort of the easiest way to explain it. Just think of making a cup of tea for that fussiest person in your family. And because we've got the formulation specific to a turf environment, that means we're getting the maximum benefit from that active ingredient in the turf environment, as opposed to just using that active ingredient by itself. So we're getting more bang for your buck with a turf specific formulation. And so this leads on to the better control, better quality playing surfaces. I mentioned plant health. Signature Extra does more than just control the disease. It also helps manage biotic stresses and abiotic stresses. So biotic stresses are those from living things, so pathogens. Disease is a prime example. Abiotic stresses are non-living things like, as I mentioned, summer stress, so temperatures, light intensity, drought, all those things. And the formulation helps maintain the plant health through those biotic and abiotic stresses. With that, we've got it achieves performance in all weather conditions. Obviously, you can't apply it in all weather conditions if the ground is frozen or if the ground's covered in snow, if it's hammering down with rain, or if it's blowing a gale. You can't. Good stewardship would dictate you can't apply a product in those conditions. But once you've got it down, and if those conditions happen, we're still getting really good performance in all those conditions. I've already mentioned about the pigment and that you get that immediate aesthetic improvement, and you get the long-lasting greenness from the increase in chlorophyll in the grass plant. And ultimately, that is improving the turf, the playing surface, and improved course conditions is a primary driver for golfer satisfaction. And if you can keep your golfers satisfied, that really is takes a lot of stress off of you in the course of your duties. Now, that's all I'm going to talk about Stress Guard. I'm now going to concentrate on the actual results that we've had from trials. I just checked my time and I'm still within time, so I'll press on. Before I do that, I just want to make a quick point about trials. When we submit a dossier to the regulatory authorities to make a submission for an authorization for a product, we have to get lots and lots of data, trials data, and this trials data has to be independent trials data. So it's not something, they're not trials that we as a company have conducted, they're trials that independent companies have conducted on our behalf. So examples would be the Sports Turf Research Institute, the Irish Sports Turf Institute, and other independent companies. And the trials are spread, have great geographic variation, and so they're looking on, they're carried out on trials where there's different compositions of grass, different environmental factors. They could be on private land and have simulated wear applied to them, or in the case of this picture, they're actually carried out on golf courses. So this was carried out on the 8th green of this particular golf course. So the product in the trial is subject to the daily maintenance practices that are carried out on the green, and it's subject to the wear that daily golf, the play of daily golf exerts on the turf. So on this trial, there will be untreated plots, there'll be Signature Extra treated plots, and there'll be other fungicides for direct comparisons. So I just wanted to sort of highlight, we need a minimum of 2 years of data. There's a minimum of a lot of trials basically. So there's lots of data that has to be sent to the regulatory authorities for them to assess. So in terms of results, microdocium patch, if we've got excellent control with microdocium patch. If you look at the table on the right hand side, you'll see that these trials were on average a 21-day application interval. We trial 14 days, 21 days, 28 days, and we found that 21 was the optimum interval. And if you look at the numbers, the first column, it says first app 12-24 DAA. That means 12 is the first application, and the assessment was carried out 12 to 24 days after application A. As I say, there's a number of trials that are here, so the first application varied between 12 and 24 days. But you can see the average peak of efficacy was 85% compared to the untreated. So yeah, that's fantastic level of control. If we look at the middle column, this is for 2 applications, so 20 to 26 days after application B, after the second application, when they were assessed, there was 88% level of control compared to the untreated. And with the third applications, as I mentioned, you can do 6 sequential applications. 12 to 15 days after application C, we'll see an average peak of 93% control compared to the average. So you can see there is that cumulative effect that I mentioned earlier. And if we look at this graphically, here you can see that the pinky red bars, I think the color is actually called Bayer fuchsia, but I think we'll stick to pinky red for now. You can see that the pinky red bars are the untreated plots, and the green bars are the treated. And you can see there's that increase over time in the disease. The level of control has improved over time because we're comparing the percentage of control to the percentage of disease. So from the outset, 12 to 24 days after the first application, on average, there was 7% disease and 1% disease in the signature extra plots. And if we fast forward to 20 to 31 days after the third application, there was 18% disease in the untreated, and it was just under 2% disease in the signature extra plots. So yeah, a massive difference between treated and untreated. Now with the disease control, typically when you have microdocium patch, it's in the autumn and winter months. So we've got shorter daylight hours and the light intensity or light quality isn't as good. And so that impacts on the grass plant's ability to carry out photosynthesis. And anything you can do to improve the rate of photosynthesis means that it improves the ability for the grass plant to generate energy, and the more energy it has, the healthier it will be. And so with the increased chlorophyll content that we see in stress turf with signature extra, that is a prime driver to helping increase photosynthesis rates, and we have measured increased photosynthesis rates with a signature extra treated turf, and so we are getting that more energy in the plant, and it's healthier. I've already mentioned that the enhanced root growth that we're seeing and the mitigation from wear stress, the improved turf colour quality and density. But interestingly enough, in all the trials that were conducted for microdocium patch in the autumn and winter, it was noted on all sites that come the spring, there was enhanced spring green up. It just greened up quicker and better than would normally be the case. So that's microdocium patch. We'll move on to anthracnose now, because I'm just checking the time and I'm getting close to my limit here. Anthracnose, again, we've got excellent disease control. Now, we carried out preventative trials as well as curative trials for anthracnose. So if we look at that first column on the table, you can see after the first application, 21 to 24 days after the first application, there was an average of 80% control compared to the untreated in preventative plots. That's an average of 80%. For two apps, 12 to 15 days after application B, the second application, there was an average of 91% control in the preventative plots, and the number in brackets is the curative plots. So 12 to 21 days after application B, there was an average peak efficacy of 81%. And then for the third application, 12 to 15 days after the third application, there was an average peak efficacy of 98% in the preventative plots, and there was 94% peak efficacy, average efficacy in the curative plots. Look at this graphically. Again, the pinky red bars are the untreated, and the green are the signature extra treated. You can see there's that cumulative effect with signature extra. The level of control has improved over time. So from the end, with the untreated, the disease level has risen, as you'd expect, over time. So we've gone from 8% disease in the untreated and 2% disease in the treated to there is a peak towards the end of the trial, but at the end of the trial there was over 8% in the untreated, and the level of disease in the treated was down to less than 1%. That was on the preventative trials. For the curative trials, now when it's a curative trial, you've got established disease, you're already starting on the back foot, so it takes a bit longer to get on top of that disease. So you'll see here that at the beginning of the trial, 21 to 24 days after the first application, the level of disease in the untreated was 10%, and in the treated it was just over 5%. And again, if we fast forward, you can see graphically the level of disease in the treated declined over time, and the level of disease in the untreated, on average, it peaked and troughed, but ultimately it peaked at the end of the trial. So there was 13% disease in the untreated, and the treated, the signature extra treated plots were down to 1% at the end of the trial. So that's fantastic results. But as I say, with anthracnose, that disease is something that occurs mid to late summer and early into early autumn. And so mid to late summer, you're getting summer stress effects, and signature extra with stress guard formulation technology mitigates those issues. So we're seeing UV protection, drought tolerance, heat stress tolerance, as well as the recovery from wear stress and improved turf color quality and density. And if any of you were fortunate to go to the STRI's Research Days event last year, we actually were showing a summer stress trial, and we were using signature extra. We actually had it under a code name because it wasn't authorized then. So if you came along, the plots that were 15ESP742, those were the signature extra plots. And we were comparing it with other products that are used typically to try and mitigate summer stress. So we had it compared to a pigment, a growth regulator, and a wetting agent. And the signature extra plots, they stood out head and shoulders over the other plots, and more importantly, they were disease-free, whereas the other plots did have disease. They had anthracnose on them. So you're getting the control of the disease, and you're also getting, you're mitigating that summer stress. Now, my time is almost up for this part of the webinar, so I just want to summarize the points that I've gone through. So first, disease management, first and foremost, you're getting control of anthracnose and microdocium patch. Resistance management, Fusatile Al is classified as having being a low risk for resistance to occur, so you can have those sequential applications. Stress management, it has the stress guard formulation technology, and it mitigates those abiotic and biotic stress factors. Plant health, it is improving plant health as well. We're getting increased chlorophyll content, increased photosynthesis, and obviously protection against those stress factors that I mentioned earlier. So you're ending up with consistent turf, consistent color, quality, and density. Now that concludes my presentation. I'll hand over to Greg in a second for the Q&A session. I just want to say that if you think of any questions later this evening, tomorrow or next week, my email address is there, Greg's email address is there on the screen. Just send us your questions and we'll happily answer them. If you want more information on Signature Extra Stress Guard, we have more information on our website. So that's es.bayer.co.uk. But I'll now hand back to Greg, who's been collating all of your questions, and we'll try and answer them for you. So over to you, Greg.
Thank you very much, Colin. Yes, I've been scribbling like crazy here while you're giving the presentation. Well done. It's very, very, very good. Yeah, we have a few questions here, so I'll go through them if you don't mind, Colin. In terms of the product itself, are there any particular do's and don'ts with the product?
Yes. So it's a granular product, and it's been designed to they're very consistent prill size, grain size. They flow really easily. Doesn't produce dust. You know, if you've ever used granular products in the past, you pour it in, there's a big plume of dust. But because it flows so easy, and dependent on your tank, you want to follow good practices. So fill the tank half full before you start adding the product to the tank. But all tanks vary. You want agitation on, and but the inlet for the agitation varies from tank to tank, and on some tanks it can be located directly beneath the opening of the tank. So because it flows so easy, you don't really want to just dump it in one foul swoop, because what could happen is that the granules could sink straight to the inlet of that agitator and potentially cause blockages. So fill the tank half full, have it agitating, and pour the product in, at a sensible rate. Don't just dump it all in.
So good practice prevails as ever.
Definitely, yeah.
Is this product available in the UK?
It's not currently. It has been submission has been made, so that is ongoing, and we're just. I talked about regulatory issues. This is just one of those hurdles that we've got to go over to be able to make the product available in the UK.
Okay. In terms of pigment, firstly, two questions in one really. How long does the pigment last? And if I'm currently using a pigment regularly, how will this affect my signature application? Or will my signature application affect my pigment application?
Yeah, okay, it's a good question. I mean, I sort of answered half of that question in the talk. The effects of the pigment would be 1 to 2 weeks, depending on the growth rate and the frequency of mowing. And as I say, you would get that natural greenness occur from that increased chlorophyll content. But if you are going to continue using a pigment, I'd say 1 to 2 weeks, depending on your growth rates. But bear in mind that all pigments vary in the protection that they offer turf. So you get a greenness occurs, but the pigment and the formulation in Signature is such that you're getting that immediate green up, but so you've got the pigment there, but it's also drastically reducing the level of UVA and UVB that is reaching the grass plant. So UVA and UVB basically generates heat stress in the grass plant. Signature Extras is effectively blocking that out or significantly reducing it, but also in creating that that barrier for the turf, that protection for the turf. It's also reducing the PAR, the photosynthetic reactive radiation, but it's not reducing it to a level that is dangerous for the turf. It just reduces it slightly. The turf needs PAR to be able to complete photosynthesis, and other pigments, they vary in their degree. So some pigments, there's been research show, completely block out PAR, and so actually they're doing more harm than good to the turf. And so I think if you're going to apply a pigment after applying signature, allow plenty of time for the effects of that pigment to wear off, so 1 to 2 weeks. Sure. Because if you apply another one on top, you might be completely blocking out PAR, and that will be detrimental to your turf.
Okay. Question also here from John Dempsey, Dr. John Dempsey in Ireland, as a lot of the Irish guys are very familiar with. As this is a phosphonate product, how do you distinguish it from other phosphonate products already available in the market, i.e. those marketed as biostimulants or nutritional inputs?
Yeah, so this is a registered fungicide. Those other products aren't. So this has had to go through reams and reams of hurdles to become to be authorized as a fungicide. That's a clear distinction. But with those other products that John's alluding to, phytotoxicity is an issue. You can't put too much of them down in one go, and so we have to look at phytotoxicity as part of our evaluation and submission to the relevant regulatory authorities. And in the height of summer stress, heat stress, drought stress, you could you should apply it at the label rate, obviously, the 20 kilograms per hectare. But when we do the phytotoxicity, we have to look at applying it at twice the rate, so 40 kilograms per hectare, and the application interval is a lot shorter. It's it would be like a 7-day interval, and then we're seeing no phytotoxicity effects on the turf whatsoever. Those other products that John alludes to, if you were to apply them at twice the rate in the height of summer, you'd probably end up with brown crispy turf. So that's a big distinction. Again, because they're phosphonates, if you look at the chemical structure of Phosphate compared to the ones that John alludes to, they're completely different. They're like chalk and cheese, day and night. The chemical structures, and so I think that those are the key differences. So I would point out for now, but certainly we can provide more information on those areas, but that was just off the top of my head, so I'd have to refer to my notes for further information.
Okay, thank you, Colin. Is there tank cleaner required after use of the product, Colin?
Well, good practice would be that you, for any pesticide, whether it be an insecticide, herbicide, fungicide, good practice would be to use a tank cleaner as part of that tank cleaning process, so that you're eliminating all the residues in that tank. So yes, I'd say use a tank cleaner as good stewardship. Okay.
Rain fastness of the product, Colin. How rain fast is Signature Extra?
Yeah, so this is another thing that we have to evaluate as part of our submission. So rain fastness has been carried out. Just really explain what rain fastness is. Some people think rain fastness means it's dry on the leaf. That's not the case. Rain fastness means the droplets have fastened to the leaf, so that in the event of rain, they're not washed off. And with the evaluations that we've carried out, it is rain fast within an hour. So 1 hour rain fastness.
Okay. Final couple of questions then, I guess. Well, 2 of these I can answer. Where can we buy it? Right now it's available from your crop care reps. They have stock ready to go, so hit those guys up. And price is also available on application to those guys. I think really that's all we have time for now from a question and answer perspective. But guys on the line, if you have questions that you need answered, or if we didn't answer anything that you sent in there in the Q&A, I'll try and answer those directly. but please email either Colin or myself for those answers.
And also, Greg, could I just interrupt? If they could send us their basis numbers and we can get them registered, or IASIS or GCSAI, we can get them registered for their CPD points.
Well, Colin, that was part of my wrap up.
Oh, I do apologise.
But thank you for doing that. Yes, guys, basis, IASIS, GCSAI, CPD points. Email myself your numbers or your details, and we'll get those applied to your accounts. So I guess needing to wrap this up, just a couple of thanks. I'd like to thank all the Bayer staff involved in putting this together. Well done, everybody. To GCSAI, our educational partners, and BIGA also for pushing out the invitations as our educational partners, and of course CropCare, our distribution partners for the product right now. So guys, yes, thank you very much, and hopefully we'll have something another webinar coming to you soon. And yeah, stay in touch on Twitter or send us messages via text or email. Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody.